In Australia, I wouldn't buy any of these 4 types of houses, no matter how cheap they are. If you fall into one of these traps, you could lose at least 50,000 or as much as 200,000. The Marvel wind is really strong. The first is a house with a heritage overlay, which means it's a heritage protected building. If you buy an old house with Victorian style windows that are ugly as sin and want to replace them, you first have to go through the heritage process. Even simple renovation approvals take 4 to 12 weeks. The renovation costs are directly 15% to 25% higher than for ordinary houses. And the fees for a heritage architect can account for 10% to 15% of the entire project. On a 200k renovation, architects charge 20 to 30k. That's easy profit. In Melbourne's inner city like Fitzroy and Carlton North, nearly 95% of houses have heritage overlays. To check, search the address on VicPlan for an HO code. If it's there, you're likely affected. The second type is a restrictive covenant, meaning development is restricted. You might buy a large plot with future potential, whether for resale or your own project. You think you can make a fortune, but then you find out there's a single dwelling only restriction. This is a clause written into the land title around the 1950s. Common restrictions include not being able to build 2 dwellings, not being allowed to build 2 stories, or only being permitted to use brick construction. Of course, these can be removed. If no one objects, going through the council process costs about 10 to 20,000. But if neighbors object and it goes to the Supreme Court, the cost can be 20 to 70,000. So what should you do? When reviewing the Section 32 contract, make sure you have a good conveyancer to carefully check for old covenants. Some are even handwritten with edits and corrections. You must look at this carefully. The third point is areas with a high concentration of public housing. This is backed by data analysis. If the street you're buying on has a public housing ratio of 12% to 18%, your property price will be about 20% lower than surrounding houses. For example, in Melbourne's Richmond, after tracking 1,116 transactions, we found that properties not far from large public housing complexes sold for $72,000 more per 100 transactions. The most important issue is still public safety. No one wants their children to encounter people of lower quality on their way to and from school. I'm not saying everyone living in public housing is of low quality. What I'm talking about is a matter of probability. Let me clarify that for myself. So how do you check? Use ID Community. Friends, I've included the instructional video below for your reference. The fourth category is something you probably wouldn't expect. Secondary new homes that are 5 to 10 years old. They still look very new. The price is cheaper than brand new homes and you can move in right away. I know that sounds great, but did you know? In Victoria, building insurance covers structural defects for only 6 years and non-structural defects for just 2 years. It's very likely that by the time you buy, the warranty will expire soon after. And 70% of Australian homes have at least one quality issue. 44% have structural cracks and 35% have mold problems. These issues often don't show up in the first few years after the house is built. Problems with waterproofing, foundations, and plumbing tend to emerge in that 5 to 10 year window. On the other hand, if you're buying a 30-year-old brick house, you can actually feel more at ease because all the issues are already out in the open. You can check for them and a building inspection will reveal them. But with secondary new homes, many areas are sealed off, so you can't even inspect them. Plus, in the past 2 years, over 5,000 construction companies have gone bankrupt across Australia. Do you remember Paul Davis? They went bankrupt in March 2023, and at that time they still had 1,500